My boyfriend doesn't want to get married because he doesn't believe in marriage. Or is it because of the wife and kids he has? Story time. So I was a few years into my relationship with Steve, and I started approaching him with the topic of marriage. And after many conversations, we came to the conclusion that Steve didn't believe in marriage. However, he said as a sign of his commitment to me, he would move in with me. So Steve works for a production company and he often has to travel abroad for work. And this was why he was very rarely home. So one day I got given an early finish from work, we all love him. And as I walked in the door, I saw Steve on the sofa. And he had told me that he was actually supposed to be working in France that week. But he said that they'd got everything done a little bit quicker than they thought, so he came home early to surprise me. And I didn't believe a word he was saying. And what was even more suspicious was that he then told me that he didn't need to travel much for the next few weeks because all the filming locations were in like the towns around us. So since I wasn't expecting Steve to be home so early, I took a week off. And he didn't know this. I thought one day I'd treat myself to a little shopping trip. And that was when I saw my babes, Steve, hand in hand with another woman and a baby. And I managed to follow them for a really long time without being noticed. And as you probably could guess, Steve was actually this baby's father. And of course, she was his wife. So that night he told me he was going to sleep in a hotel. Which, Steve, do better, man. So I used this time to collect every single picture that we had ever had together. And I made the most extravagant photo album you've ever seen. Literally, the next opportunity I got, I was following him wherever he was gonna go. We ended up in this absolutely stunning house in the suburbs. That is when I saw the same woman that I'd seen him on the other day greet him at the door. I had apparently found Steve's family home. So I waited for a little while, and that is when I saw the postman. It was game time, bitches. I gave him my gorgeous handmade photo album, and I told him exactly what address to send it to. His wife took the photo album, the door closed, and I waited. And let me tell you, the screams that could be heard afterwards, I could literally hear them down the street in my car with the windows up. What preceded was the woman chasing Steve out of the house with a rolling pin. And let me tell you, that sight was delicious. I broke up with my boyfriend because I thought he was cheating on me, but years later, I'd found out the truth. Story time. So me and my now ex-boyfriend, who we'll call Steve, had been together for about 2 years. It all started when we decided to plan a little trip together. I'd been saying for years I really wanted to go to Switzerland, so that is what we settled on. Let me tell you, as soon as that plane trip was booked, Steve started acting different. He would be home less and less, hiding his phone from me. He hardly talked about his day anymore. One of the biggest red flags was when he started to get late night calls and he would jump out of bed, like wouldn't let me see who was on the other end of the phone, wouldn't take the call in the room with me. I was getting so suspicious. So one day his best friend Alan comes round to our house. I explained everything to Alan. And even Alan started to act weird, and he'd never ever been like that with me before. The more I was telling Alan, the redder his face was getting. And that was when I just accepted that Steve was definitely cheating on me and that Alan knew all about it and was trying to hide it. I was not about to let anyone disrespect me like that, so I walked back into our house and I started to pack my bags. It was then that Steve realised that something was up and he kept trying to stop me from packing. But I was just so angry I couldn't even look at him. Shortly after that, my brother came to pick me up. I ended up staying with my brother for a few days and I ended up blocking Steve and his whole family on literally everything. A week later, my brother came home with a letter from Steve and I just tore it up straight away. I was like, no, not reading it. Eventually, I went and moved my stuff out of mine and Steve's house. And when I went in, there was another letter on my desk. Again, just ripped it up, didn't even read it. Let's fast forward 3 years to the present day. I am in a cafe and I see Alan. I hadn't seen Alan since that night, so I went over to say hi. But this man was not happy to see me. He told me that I must be the most awful woman on the planet. And I was like, oh, that feels a bit personal, Alan. Why? And that was when he told me that Steve had been planning to propose to me in Switzerland. I was so shocked that I dropped my cup of coffee onto the floor. The late night calls were from like an event planner in Switzerland. I just stared at Alan in absolute disarray. Alan gave me the dirtiest look and then walked away. And now I feel so nasty and so stupid. I could have literally had it all if I'd have just asked what was going on. And now I'm thinking, should I try and contact Steve? Let me know what you think.
Story time of how my boyfriend ended up being my stepdad. So I was dating this kid and me and this kid had like the best relationship. He was 19 and I was 17. And I mean, we were literally always together. And my mom would always call him hot and stuff like that. But you know, I thought that's just what moms do. And I didn't think of it in that type of way. So one day my boyfriend got mad at me. And And he was like, I'm gonna F your mom, become your stepdad, and boss you around if you keep up that attitude. And I mean, who would think that he's gonna actually try to do that? And I said, I would like to see you try. But again, we were just in a little argument, so about a month or two goes on, and I find messages from my boyfriend to my mom and vice versa. They were sexting, and I saw things I did not want to see from my mother. So I went to go confront both of them, and I confronted my mom first, and she wouldn't tell me nothing, she just told me to get out of her face. Oh, but my boyfriend told me they have been hooking up. But he told me I was overreacting because it's just my mom. Oh, just wait till you find out what happens next. I'm running out of time, for part 2. Part 2 and how my boyfriend became my stepdad. So continuing on with the story, I told him that he was disgusting, and then I just ended our relationship. And at first he wouldn't let me break up with him. But then finally we were just both okay, this is not gonna work out. So about 2 days later, I come home and I see him at my house. And I'm like, dude, we're not getting back together, so don't try. You're weird. And he has the audacity to go, I'm not here for you, I'm here for your mother. And at that point, I was I'm moving out. And that night, I heard some noises that I didn't want to hear. And then my mom ended up getting pregnant again. She's only 34, I think, but he's 19. So the age gap isn't really that big of a difference. But it's the point that my boyfriend decided to F my mom, get her pregnant, and now I don't even know how I'm related to this child. Yeah, so now my mom's pregnant with my ex-boyfriend's child. I mean, I'm still nice to the kid because it's my step-sibling's dad. But at the same time, I secretly want to, inject him out of the game. In the game I want to inject him out of his life, so yeah. Story time of how I caught my teacher and my best friend doing the dirty. So everything was fine up until the middle of the year when she started acting really strange, and so did he. So at the time, I was 13 and she was 14. And I'm pretty sure my teacher was in his mid-20s or 30s. So basically, she's the type of girl who literally hates school and would do anything to get out of class. Then I noticed her getting early to class and not leaving until everybody else left. Then I started paying a little more attention, and he would always walk by her desk and slip her notes and candy and just weird stuff, and it was really, really strange to me. He also moved to her desk right next to his, which his was all the way in the back left corner of the classroom. He would also always make jokes with her, which I didn't really understand until I found out they were sleeping together. So on Friday, my mom messaged her parents asking if they could pick me up Monday because my parents were going out of town that weekend and I hated riding the bus. Well, I'm guessing she didn't know that I was going home with her Monday. So that Monday, I got into her mom's car and I asked her mom where she was. Her mom said that she was failing math and her math teacher offered to tutor her. This teacher was also brand new. I'm running out of time, so for part 2. Here's part 2 of how I found out my best friend was sleeping with our teacher. So continuing on with the story, I told her mom that I've never seen him tutor somebody before. Plus, she told me her grades were sky high in that class. I ended up forgetting my pencil pouch, which had my keys to my house in it, so I had to go back anyways. And when I went back, the door was locked. And he had something over it or whatever, but I could see under it because he didn't cover it all the way. And she was on his desk and he was kissing her or doing weird stuff. I knew her mom wouldn't believe me if I told her what I saw, so I just told her it was an emergency and she was in trouble. So we booked it back to the classroom, and at first we didn't see them, and then she seen a foot come from beside the desk. Mind you, we're peeking under it, so we couldn't really see much. She started banging on the classroom door and screaming. I've never seen her this mad. I was honestly terrified that I ran into a separate classroom. The teacher, to this day, I'm pretty sure he's still in jail, and she is still homeschooled and grounded with no phone. We found out that he was married with 4 kids. Well, was married. Story time of how I found out that my 13-year-old sister was sleeping with my teacher and nobody ever did anything about it. So this is the first time that I'm actually telling anybody because I'm finally old enough to realize that all of this was just wrong. So at the time, my sister was in 8th grade and I was in 6th grade. So my sister claimed that she needed extra help in history, and I guess my mom trusted him because after school he would take me and my sister to his house and then help my sister. And he would always say he had to get ready before he tutored her because they would go in the room with the door shut. But he said that was the only way for her to learn best. And while we were waiting for him to get ready, me and my sister would play this literal funnest and most satisfying game ever. It's where you grow little plant dudes, and me and her literally got so addicted to it. The link to that is also going to be in my bio. And then he would start playing the game with her, trying to get on her good side. And then they make me wait in the living room for about an hour while they study. And every day she would come out saying, oh my god, I learned so much today. I mean, she did learn something. Anyways, I'm running out of time for part 2. Part 2 of how I caught my 13-year-old sister sleeping with her teacher. So continuing on with the story, I was just waiting outside the room until they got done. And one day my mom called me and said that it was an emergency and she had to pick us up early. So I knocked on the door really lightly and then I opened the door. And I'm surprised it wasn't locked. And I opened the door and I see my 13-year-old sister and her 42-year-old teacher just getting it on. I mean, I ain't no snitch, so I didn't say nothing. At the time, I was 11 years old in 6th grade, and I high-fived her. Then the teacher bribed me with $500 to not say anything. Again, I was in 6th grade at the time, so my parents would definitely wonder where I got the money from. So the teacher told me that if I let them keep doing their thing, he'll make this fake raffle and say that I won it. Because me and my sister were so close, I never snitched on her. And this is the first time I'm telling the story. Me and my sister don't talk anymore. So if you're that teacher that gave me $500 to keep effing my older sister, you are probably one of the most disgusting people that I've ever met. And if this story gets out there, sorry for saying this, but I need to get this out there. John Wilson, you deserve to rot in jail. Okay, so I went to Target about 30 minutes ago. And I was looking for iPad cases, and the iPad cases and the phone cases are all together, but everything is locked up to prevent stealing. There was these two adorable girls. They were literally looked so cute and innocent. Piggy tails and everything. The mom or dad or parent or guardian or whatever was nowhere to be found. Well, wasn't by them. And at max, they were 4 and probably 7. They were tiny little adorable things. One of them pulls a hammer out of their bag and starts hitting one of the phone case things, trying to get it out of the security thing. I already knew what they were doing. And I was like, girls, you're not gonna be able to get that out of there. Just go to the cases over there, because there was a little section of dollar cases that wasn't security protected. The 4-year-old or the younger one looks at me and goes, F you, B, but says the cuss words, throws their little hammer at my foot but doesn't hit me with it, then kicks me, then grabs the phone case security box thing, calls me a FAGG, then you know the rest, and said, no, I'm stealing this one, bro. Story time of how I found out that I was pregnant with my stepbrother's baby. So basically I was 16 at the time and my mom didn't let me date. So I had to keep dating this guy a secret from my mom. And every weekend this guy would come over and she was dating him, but she didn't think that we were ready to meet his kids yet. Okay, so to be able to hang out with my boyfriend, me and him both told our parents that we were going to a friend's house. And my best friend's mom does not care what she does, so me and him would both always go there. So about a year into dating this kid, me and him were both tired of keeping it a secret from our parents. And legit, coincidentally, the same exact night that I was going to tell my mom about my boyfriend is the same exact night her boyfriend was going to bring his kids over so we could meet them. So I was going to wait till after we met them so she was in a better mood. And when my mom's boyfriend got there, so did my boyfriend. Me and him literally don't know how we didn't catch on. So we both decided not to tell our parents yet. And then me and my boyfriend decided that we were just going to take advantage of it. Because my mom's boyfriend was going to be moving in, so that means I can live with my boyfriend. I'm running out of time for part 2. Part 2, I found out that I was pregnant with my stepbrother's baby. Continuing with the story, my mom's boyfriend moved in, and because my boyfriend was my mom's boyfriend's son, he also moved in. So every time my mom and her boyfriend, aka my boyfriend's dad, would go to sleep, me and my boyfriend would always end up in the same bed. I don't know how we hid this for such a long time, but they ended up telling us that they were getting married, so me and my boyfriend decided that we were going to tell them that we had been dating for, I think it was 2 years at the time. My mom and his dad were absolutely okay with it, and at that, they made us share a room in our new house. And an exact week after they got married, I ended up taking a pregnancy test just for fun, and it came out positive. I was literally so scared, and 2 days later, my mom told me that she was pregnant. So as we speak now, I have a 2-year-old brother by my boyfriend's dad, and I have a 2-year-old baby by my stepbrother. Oh, also for another story time, I caught my stepbrother, aka my boyfriend, sleeping with my mom. Yeah.
I was pressured into a threesome by my boyfriend and enjoyed it, but not because of him. So I, 21F, have been with my boyfriend, 22 male, for 3 years. He's known I was bi since we started dating and had never really said anything about it till last year. After he met my college friend Maya. Maya is also bi and very beautiful, but while honest about her experience, isn't one to brag. When in a group playing drinking games last year, Maya opened up about a threesome she had before, and I guess that's when my boyfriend got the idea. I had been against it when he first brought it up, but eventually he wore me down. When I finally said yes, he immediately suggested Maya, which looking back was his aim from the start. When we approached Maya, she was down and we had made plans that worked for everyone's schedule. Maya texted me separately multiple times to make sure I was on board and comfortable, as she put it, just didn't seem my style. I told her I was on board and to not worry, that I and my boyfriend had talked about it. When the day came, she surprisingly took the lead, which I don't think my boyfriend was expecting either. I'll spare you the details, but she made sure the focus was me and actually instructed my boyfriend on what to do. If he tried to focus on her, she gently redirected him to me, saying things like, "New, look how pretty your girlfriend is when you do this." She barely let him touch her without asking me, "Do you want to do?" She would praise me a lot, though, out something I didn't even realize I liked. She also checked on both of us through the whole thing. I honestly think it was the best time me and my boyfriend ever had. The craziest part is when she did her solo session with me, and I had never felt anything as good as that. After it was over, she did what she called aftercare and made us comfortable. I don't remember me or boyfriend falling asleep. But when we woke up, breakfast was made. Maya is a chef professionally, so it was amazing she had also left. Asa noticed she had work in the afternoon and was sorry she couldn't stay. I feel like the dynamic between me and my boyfriend had changed since, and I know we have to talk about it, but I don't even know what to say. My point being, I enjoyed intimacy with Maya more than I ever had with my boyfriend. I didn't want to go super into detail, but Maya was mostly touching me and was focused on me. I also think my boyfriend is disappointed he wasn't the focus. I also think he was surprised how much he liked being told what to do. My boyfriend beat me to it and has texted me, "We need to talk. We are planning on meeting up at Starbucks after my shift tomorrow." When we met, he apologized. He said he never saw himself convincing me as manipulation, as we had talked about being more adventurous in the bedroom before, and he thought I just needed time. He told me he did enjoy it a lot, but it wasn't what he imagined it would be, and was feeling insecure because I had been so responsive to Maya. It wasn't until after it was over he started feeling inadequate as a partner. I'll admit I was a little heated because I told him for the past year something like this would happen, and that 3 ways, especially ones not talked about in depth and hard boundaries set, this happens. I was willing to work through this if he was willing to work on his insecurity, but then he asked me to drop Maya. I absolutely refused. Maya is one of the few friends I have in the city, and we're very close even before all this. I explained to him that distancing from Maya would not fix his insecurities. We went back and forth for a while before he tried to give me a "it's me or her" speech. I just left him there. I'm hurt and angry with myself it even got to this point. Like, how in the HLL did I get here? And I know you guys made sure to point out all the red flags, but he was my first serious boyfriend. 3 years are hard to see past that, I guess. I called Maya after I got home and explained everything. She tried to apologize, explaining she had a small thing for me when we first met but grew into more just a friendship. When me and now ex-boyfriend approached her, she was excited to, in her words, F it out of her system. She apologized again, saying she didn't want for us to break up or for this situation to be more than it was, but I reassured her none of this is her fault. It looks like I'm going to make a move on Maya now, but I'm not sure if she still had the same feelings for me.
What's a random fact that has been burned into your brain? Koalas are effing horrible animals. They have one of the most minor brain-to-body ratios of any mammal. Additionally, their brains are smooth. A brain is folded to increase the surface area for neurons. If you present a koala with leaves plucked from a branch and laid on a flat surface, the koala will not recognize it as food. They are too thick to adapt their feeding behavior to cope with change. They can starve to death in a room full of potential food. This is not the token of an animal that is winning at life. Speaking of stupidity and food, one of the likely reasons for their primitive brains is that, besides being poisonous, eucalyptus leaves, the only thing they eat, have almost no nutritional value. They can't afford the extra energy to think. They sleep more than 80% of their effing lives. When they are awake, all they do is eat, and occasionally scream like effing Satan. Because eucalyptus leaves hold such little nutritional value, koalas have to ferment them in their guts for days. Unlike their brains, they have the most significant hindgut-to-body ratio of any mammal. Many herbivorous mammals have adaptations to cope with harsh plant life taking its toll on their teeth. Rodents, for instance, have teeth that never stop growing, and some animals only have teeth on their lower jaw, grinding plant matter on bony plates in the tops of their mouths. Others have enlarged molars that distribute the wear and break down plant matter more efficiently. Koalas are no exception. When their teeth erode down to nothing, they resolve the situation by starving to death because they're effing terrible animals. Being mammals, koalas raise their joeys on milk, admittedly, one of the lowest milk yields to body ratio. There's a trend here. When the young joey needs to transition from rich, nourishing substances like milk to eucalyptus, a plant that seems to be making it abundantly clear that it doesn't want to be eaten, it finds it does not have the necessary gut flora to digest the leaves. To remedy this, the young joey begins nuzzling its mother's anus until she leaks little diarrhea, actually fecal pap, slightly less digested, which he then proceeds to slurp on. This partially digested plant matter gives him just what he needs to start developing his digestive system. Of course, he may not have needed to bother nuzzling his mother. She may have been suffering from incontinence. Why? Because koalas are riddled with chlamydia. In some areas, the infection rate is 80% or higher. This statistic isn't helped by the fact that one of the few other activities koalas will spend their precious energy on is rope. Despite being seasonal breeders, males seem to either not know or care and will simply overpower a female regardless of whether she is ovulating. If she fights back, he may drag them out of the tree, bringing us back to the brain. Koalas have a higher than average quantity of cerebrospinal fluid in their brains. This protects their brains from injury. Should they fall from a tree? An animal so thick it has its own little built-in special ed helmet. I effing hate them.